You know that feeling? That moment when the ground drops out from under you, and you realize everything you thought was real, everything you built your life on, was just a carefully constructed lie? That was me, standing at the back of a room packed with hundreds of people, watching my own family erase me in real time. My sister, Chloe, stood on stage beaming, the picture of success. It was the first anniversary gala for Catalyst Women, her brainchild, or, as the glossy brochures put it, her vision, her triumph. The air hummed with self-congratulation and the clinking of champagne flutes. Financiers, influencers, family members, they were all there, celebrating the empire she had built. I was there too, near the back by the service entrance, holding a spare microphone and checking on the presentation tech. My name wasn't on the guest list. My face wasn't in the promo video looping on the screens. I wasn't a co-founder, not a partner, not even a recognized contributor. I was just the help. The invisible force that made sure the lights stayed on and the systems didn't crash. Systems I had designed, built, and poured 2 years of my life into. I saw Uncle John across the room, looking uncomfortable, nursing a drink by himself. Saw David, the lead investor, laughing loudly near the stage. I'd spent weeks pitching him the core technical framework of Catalyst Women before Chloe ever stepped into the picture, weeks he seemed to have entirely forgotten. My parents, Mason and Gabriella, were front and center, looking on with pride reserved solely for Chloe. It was a familiar scene. Me in the background, making things work, while they shone in the spotlight, basking in the glow of my effort. The main presentation started, Chloe launching into her keynote. And then it happened. The complex interactive element I'd custom-built for her presentation, the one meant to demonstrate user engagement in real time, froze. A critical, public failure. My stomach clenched. This wasn't supposed to happen. I knew the code. I knew the fix. Quietly, trying not to draw attention, I crossed the room, slipping past tables, heading for the tech console. The technician looked panicked. "It's locked up," he whispered. I knelt down, my fingers flying over the keyboard, accessing the backend, typing in override commands. I felt Chloe's eyes on me from the stage. Her smile faltered, turning into a hard stare. I got the system back online. The graphic flickered, then stabilized, showing live data streaming in. Chloe didn't miss a beat in her speech. But as I stood up, gathering my things, she stepped towards the edge of the stage, leaning into the microphone, her voice carrying through the entire room. She thanked her team, her investors, her family. Then her eyes locked onto mine at the back. The smile vanished completely. The air went brittle. "And," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness that curdled into pure venom, "I also want to acknowledge some people who seem determined to undermine everything, to bring negativity into spaces meant for growth." Her gaze narrowed on me. Some people just can't stand to see others succeed, can they? They find ways to break things, to cause chaos, because they're miserable and they want everyone else to be miserable too. The implication hung heavy in the air. Everyone knew she meant me. My hand, still holding my laptop bag strap, tightened. "Just breathe," I told myself. "Don't react." Then she didn't just imply it. She shouted it, her voice rising to a fever pitch, cutting through the hushed room. "You ruined our lives," she screamed, pointing a finger directly at me. "You destroy everything you touch. You're a parasite. Get out." The silence that followed was deafening. My blood felt like ice. Hundreds of eyes were on me. I scanned the faces, half expecting someone, anyone, to step in, to look uncomfortable, to offer a flicker of doubt or support. But they mostly just stared, like spectators at a brutal show. And then I heard it. A distinct sound rising from the front of the room. A single pair of hands clapping. Then another. I turned my head slightly. My mother, Gabriella, was standing up, her face set in a mask of cold approval, applauding with slow, deliberate claps. Beside her, my father Mason rose too, joining in, his gaze fixed just past me, avoiding eye contact entirely, but his hands loud in their endorsement. It wasn't just tolerance. It wasn't just silence. It was active, public agreement. They were clapping for Chloe's cruelty against me. A woman in a sharp suit and enormous pearls, one of the sponsors I recognized, walked towards me, navigating the space I was trying to shrink myself into. She didn't look at my face, just my hands. "Excuse me," she said politely, her voice cutting through the ringing in my ears. "Are you perhaps with the catering staff? Table 5 needs extra napkins." Catering staff. After building the entire digital backbone of this celebrated initiative, Chloe didn't correct her. Mason and Gabriella didn't correct her. I didn't correct her. I just nodded once, my face expressionless, and walked away. I didn't go towards the kitchen. I went towards the service exit I'd used to sneak in earlier. The polished sounds of the gala, the string quartet, the laughter, the clinking glasses, they all faded behind me as I pushed open the heavy door and stepped out into the humid night air of the alleyway. It wasn't cold, but my limbs felt frozen, heavy like stone. They hadn't just chosen her. They had actively, proudly, chosen against me. I got in my car, the familiar worn leather of the steering wheel cold under my hands. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove. Aimlessly at first, taking routes that avoided streets where memories lived, routes that felt like they were taking me further and further away from everything I had known. The city lights blurred into streaks. The silence in the car felt louder than any noise, a vast, aching void. I didn't go home. Home wasn't home anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. Not really, not for me. I ended up parking blocks away from a grim, 24-hour gas station off the interstate. The flickering fluorescent lights hummed overhead as I walked inside, head down, feeling utterly anonymous. A bored teenager in a red vest mumbled something that might have been a greeting. I grabbed a granola bar and a bottle of water I had no appetite for, paying cash, needing the transaction to feel disconnected. "Is there a motel nearby?" I asked, my voice flat. "One that doesn't ask questions for a late check-in?" He pointed with a single finger without looking up. "That way. 2 blocks. Green sign missing the T. The sign was there. _tel. It blinked neon against the dark sky like a tired eye that had seen too much and given up trying to care. The lobby smelled of stale cigarettes and a desperate, cheap attempt at citrus air freshener. The man behind the counter barely glanced at me, sliding a key card across with a room number scrawled in Sharpie. "Microwave works. Don't touch the coffee maker." I mumbled a thank you I didn't mean, but he was already looking away. The room was exactly what you'd expect. Beige walls, fake wood furniture, a faded bedspread with an indecipherable pattern. The kind of place designed for transient stays and forgotten existences. I sat on the edge of the bed in the black dress I'd worn to the gala, still clutching my laptop bag. I didn't change, didn't take off my shoes. I just sat there, listening to the plumbing groan in the walls, the faint murmur of a distant TV. My phone lay face down on the nightstand. I let it. I didn't want to see if there were messages, if anyone had even noticed I was gone. 4 hours, there was nothing. No concerned texts, no missed calls, not even a perfunctory, "hope you got home okay," trying to smooth things over. The silence from them was as loud as their applause had been. It wasn't surprising, just confirming. I scrolled through old message threads, group chats where my name rarely appeared unless someone needed tech help or free labor. My replies were always full sentences. Theirs were often one-word answers, sent hours, sometimes days, later. I used to make excuses for it, thinking it was just busy family life. Now I saw it for what it was. Deliberate distance, a way of making room for me just enough when they needed something, and shrinking that space until I was virtually invisible the rest of the time. Eventually, on autopilot, I opened social media. Chloe had already posted a flurry of photos from the event. There she was, radiant, surrounded by congratulatory faces. Mason and Gabriella featured prominently, smiling, glasses raised. David the investor was there, looking important. Chloe's captions gushed about her amazing tribe, family support. "Wouldn't be here without you all." Family. I knew I had been in that room. I stood right behind the camera during the toast she posted. But in every single photo, the wide shots, the candid groups, the posed family pictures, I was gone. Cropped out. Filtered away. Or maybe I thought with a fresh wave of coldness, I was never really in the frame in their minds at all. Then I saw the photo that stopped my breath. A picture posted by my Aunt Carol, taken the week before at my parents' house. The lighting was familiar, the way the floor lamp in the hallway always cast that specific shadow. But on the wall, where my high school graduation photo had hung for over 10 years, there was a new frame. A glossy, professional family portrait. Chloe, Mason, Gabriella, perfectly posed, smiling. Even the family dog was in the photo. I wasn't. Not even a hint of where my picture used to be. That wasn't an oversight. That was a statement. A final, brutal act of erasure. I dropped the phone onto the mattress. My chest ached, a deep, quiet pain that felt too numb for tears. It was like standing in a room after someone has slammed the door shut, hard, but you know they're not coming back to open it. Hours bled into the pre-dawn gray. I hadn't slept. My body was still, but my mind was a frantic echo chamber of the night's events and years of buried slights. The vending machine outside the motel room buzzed every 5 seconds. I started counting, needing a rhythm, any rhythm to anchor me. 1, 2, 3. Then came a soft tapping at the door. Not a loud, demanding knock, just tentative taps, like someone wasn't sure they should be there. My heart hammered. Who could it be? I froze, half hoping they'd go away, but the sheer unexpectedness of it, combined with the raw need for something outside my own head, pulled me forward. Curiosity won over caution. I cracked the door open. It was Lily. My friend Lily, looking exhausted and worried, her hair pulled into a messy knot, dark circles under her eyes. She held something wrapped in a thin, discolored tea towel. She looked like she'd been driving all night, or hadn't slept either. "Scarlett," she whispered, eyes darting around the deserted hallway. "Can I come in?" I opened the door wider, stepping back without a word. Lily hadn't reached out much in the last year, not since things got complicated with my family and I'd withdrawn. It wasn't her fault. My life had become a minefield of my family's making. I found this," she said, holding out the bundled object like it was fragile, like it might burn her hands. "At your parents' house. I was dropping off something for your mom, and saw it tucked away." I peeled back the towel. It was a padded envelope, slightly dusty. My handwriting, slanted and careful, was on the front. It had a stamp. It had never been opened. My stomach plummeted. "I sent this to Mom," I managed to say, my voice raspy. Though I wasn't talking to Lily, I was talking to the unopened envelope. 2 years ago. For her birthday. Lily nodded, looking down at her worn sneakers. "Yeah." I figured. Gabriella had me waiting in the kitchen, and I saw it shoved in the back of the junk drawer, under a stack of old coupons. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the envelope. I remembered sending it. Buying a card with a watercolor bird, tucking in a gift card to her favorite bakery, writing a message I'd agonized over, something soft, something hoping to build a bridge. Inside was the card. The bird was still vibrant blue. My words inside felt like a message from a different lifetime. "Mom," I'd written, "if there's still a place in your heart for me, I'd like to sit there again. Not asking for everything, just a call. I miss our Tuesday talks. I miss you. Love, Scarlett." I closed the card, laying it gently on the bedside table next to the unopened envelope. That letter had been a risk, a vulnerable reach, a last attempt at connection. And my mother had shoved it, unopened, into a drawer filled with expired discounts and takeout menus. Not forgotten. Buried. Lily sat down on the chair opposite me. "This probably isn't my place," she said quietly, "but after your Grandma Rose passed, Mrs. Davison next door mentioned something to me. She said your grandmother wrote you 2 letters before she died." I looked up sharply. "She only sent me one. The one with the pressed flower inside." "I have it." Lily hesitated. Mrs. Davison said she distinctly remembered Grandma Rose reading her a part of a second letter just a few months before she went into hospice. Said it was very personal. She thought you got both. A second letter. One my grandmother had apparently shared with a neighbor, but somehow never reached me. I stared at the unopened envelope from my mother, then back at Lily. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening finality. "So she's not just cold," I said slowly, the words tasting like ash. She's methodical. She intercepted it. She hadn't just neglected to open my letter. She'd likely intercepted my grandmother's last words to me. She had actively controlled the flow of love and communication in the family. Lily didn't argue. She just sat with me for a while longer, her presence a small comfort in the face of this immense, calculated cruelty. After she left, leaving the unopened envelope and the weight of her words behind, I was alone again, holding the tangible proof of a broken, deliberately sabotaged connection. I opened my laptop. My initial thought was to search old emails, maybe track down some record related to a second letter from Grandma Rose, though it felt futile now. But what I stumbled upon instead made my hands go cold in a different way. It started with a folder I hadn't opened in years. Project Phoenix Archive. That was the early working name for Catalyst Women back when it was just an idea blooming in my mind, a concept I'd been developing for years before Chloe ever got involved. I clicked it open. Inside were folders labeled Core Framework, Beta Design, Platform Architecture, Module Outlines. I clicked through the files. My original diagnostic tools, coded from scratch. My detailed user journey maps. The strategic plan for scaling. My presentation templates. Even sample workshop layouts with my voice notes attached, explaining the why behind each element. Everything was time-stamped, dated back to years before Chloe ever publicly announced Catalyst Women. In a separate tab, I pulled up the current Catalyst Women website. It was like looking at a twisted reflection. The same color palette I'd painstakingly chosen. The same navigation flow. The identical breakout session titles. Even the phrasing in the About section mirrored my early mission statements almost word for word. She hadn't just taken the theme or the idea. She had lifted the entire architecture, the very DNA of what I had created. Chloe's face was everywhere on the site. Her quotes, her post photos talking about empowering women through intentional strategy, sitting cross-legged on a cream couch surrounded by carefully placed books. Books I probably recommended she read. My words, my model, my design, with my name meticulously erased. I didn't yell. I didn't throw the laptop across the room. The anger was colder, sharper. I just started taking screenshots. Methodically. Slide by slide, file by file, section by section. Her live website next to my dated, archived documents. Her quoted philosophy next to my voice notes explaining that exact concept years prior. I created a new folder on my desktop. I named it Receipts, Not Regret. Then I got up. I found a thumbtack in my laptop bag. I pinned the unopened envelope from my mother onto the drab motel wall. Beside it, I pinned the faded tea towel Lily had brought it in, a symbol of the hidden, discarded truth. Below them, I opened a screenshot on my phone, the photoshopped family picture where I was missing from the wall. I propped my phone against the lamp, displaying the image. I stared at these pieces of evidence side by side. An unopened letter begging for connection. A hidden message from my grandmother never received. A photoshopped family portrait erasing my history. And now, the digital proof of my stolen creation, her public success built on my invisible labor. It wasn't just neglect. It was total, systematic deletion. They stole my work, I said out loud to the empty motel room, my voice steady, devoid of emotion. But they can't keep my name off it forever. Or my truth. I stayed there for a long time, sitting in the quiet room, the 3 pieces of proof, the unopened letter, the hidden photo, the stolen IP on my screen, staring back at me. The room hadn't changed, but I had. The ache in my chest was still there, but it felt different now. Not a wound, but a hardening. This wasn't temporary discomfort. This was a war. And I was finally ready to fight back. Not with emotion, but with facts. By mid-morning, the lamp was back on, the laptop open, my email pulled up. I had a few tutoring inquiries. I did freelance writing and tech tutoring on the side to make ends meet. I replied to them professionally, briefly. I wasn't in the mood for small talk or selling myself. They'd see my value or they wouldn't. The room was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the quiet clicks of my keyboard. And then my phone lit up. I ignored it at first. Probably spam. Then it rang again. And again. I flipped it over. The screen showed Mom Gabriella. I let it ring out. A minute later, Dad Mason. Then an unknown number. Within 15 minutes, I had 7 missed calls. By lunchtime, it was over 20. By sundown, the number had climbed past 80. And by the next morning, 48 hours after I'd walked out, my phone's call log showed over 200 missed calls from various family members and numbers I didn't recognize but suspected were connected to them or Chloe's team. 2 days. 2 days of silence after their public spectacle and my quiet departure. And now it was like the entire house was on fire, and they suddenly remembered the invisible person who knew how to put it out. I didn't answer a single one. The voicemail icon blinked relentlessly, a digital pulse of their growing panic. I didn't listen immediately. Part of me, a small, naive part, still hoped against hope that maybe, just maybe, one of them would be different. An apology. A show of concern. Anything human. But that wasn't what I got. The first voicemail was from Mason. Mostly just heavy breathing and the sound of shuffling papers. His voice, when it came, was tight with barely suppressed anger. "Scarlett," he barked. "You need to call us back. Need. Do you hear me? This is important. No, please. No, are you okay? Just a command." The next was Chloe. Her voice was thin, panicked, accusatory. "You can't just disappear, Scarlett. You can't just post things and pretend they don't have consequences. We're family. You're being petty and selfish. Don't do this." Click. Post things? I hadn't posted anything. Just gathered proof. Their panic meant something had gotten out. Someone else must have started connecting the dots. I was halfway through deleting Chloe's message when the next one stopped me cold. Gabriella's voice, clipped and urgent. "Scarlett. Chloe's in trouble. Big trouble. That investor, David, he's asking questions about the technical build. And some blog picked up on old-school documents about Chloe's background. People are connecting dots that should not be connected. It's escalating. I need you to keep this from getting worse. Now." It was breathtaking in its audacity. Chloe is facing public accusations about the very foundation of Catalyst Women, the Part 1 build, and my mother's immediate reaction is to demand I fix it. No concern for me, no apology for the gala, no acknowledgement of the public humiliation. Just a cold, self-serving demand to clean up the mess they created and pinned on me. It was utterly surreal, like watching arsonists demand their victim extinguish the blaze they started. I closed the voicemail app. My phone immediately started ringing again. I didn't look. I opened my inbox again, my fingers moving deliberately over the keyboard. Subject: Intellectual Property Claim Documentation, Catalyst Women to Margot Ellis, Attorney. Message: Margot. Beginning initial preparation for IP dispute documentation related to the Catalyst Women Initiative. Have compiled archived files, timestamped correspondence, and comparative analysis demonstrating ownership of core framework, design, and content dating back to 2020. We'll follow up by end of week with full package and to schedule meeting. Attach several initial comparison files. Scarlett. I attached 4 clear comparison documents demonstrating the overlap between my archived work and Chloe's current platform. I saved the draft in the Receipts Not Regret folder. I didn't hit send yet. Not because I doubted my rightness, but because, for once, I wanted to be strategic. Deliberate. Not reactive. Not emotional. Just exact. Then I opened my notes app and typed a single line that felt like a solidifying truth. I am not the fixer for the fire they lit. I copied that line, pasted it into a new email draft addressed to myself, just in case. Set my phone back to Do Not Disturb. Leaned back in the stiff motel chair. Exhaled slowly through my nose. Closed the laptop. If they wanted silence, they were going to have to earn it. Because I wasn't giving it away anymore. I was holding on to it, weaponizing it. 2 mornings after I stopped answering the hundreds of calls, I was sitting in a shared workspace downtown. It was a converted warehouse near the library, airy and quiet, with large windows and terrible, free coffee that tasted vaguely of wet cardboard. It didn't matter. It was clean. It was neutral. And most importantly, it wasn't theirs. I was reviewing a tutoring inquiry when the front desk buzzed. A community manager walked over with a clipboard and a small, stiff envelope. "Scarlett," she asked. I nodded, taking the envelope. It felt heavy. The return address was printed in a clean, impersonal font I recognized from Chloe's website, Ardith and More LLP. Chloe's legal team. Inside was a letter on thick, ivory paper. At the top, in bold, stark letters, time-sensitive. Confidential. Settlement discussion. I scanned the contents. The language was polished, legalistic, but the intent was brutally transparent. A mutual resolution, they called it. They were offering to formally recognize me as a foundational contributor to Catalyst Women. Not a co-creator, not the intellectual property owner, just a footnote in the brand history. In exchange, I was required to immediately delete any personal content referencing the brand, remove any online posts or statements, even though I hadn't made any publicly yet, and most importantly, sign a comprehensive non-disparagement agreement. Essentially, erase my own truth in exchange for a single line in someone else's biography, a line I had already earned 1,000 times over. The final paragraph felt like a slap in the face. We hope this resolution allows all parties to move forward in harmony without unnecessary public discourse. Harmony. After the public shaming, the applause, the stolen work, the deliberate erasure, the hundreds of panicked calls, and this insulting offer. I didn't laugh out loud, but a cold, sharp sound escaped my chest. It was the kind of laughter that only happens when audacity wears a silk dress and pretends to be polite. My phone buzzed on the table. I didn't even look. The screen showed unknown number, but I knew the pattern. They weren't checking on me. They were checking the damage. I folded the letter carefully, slipped it back into the envelope, and tucked it into my backpack. That afternoon, I finally sent the email draft to Margot Ellis, my IP attorney. Subject line: IP claim initiation, Catalyst Women. Timeline initiated. In the message, I confirmed our meeting for the next day and listed the attachments: calendar screenshots, cloud file logs from 2020 and 2021 detailing my work, the original design and framework documents, and the comparison charts I'd built. I also attached a photo of the settlement letter. An hour later, while meticulously organizing my evidence files on Google Drive, a new email notification popped up. From a woman named Brianna, someone I'd collaborated with years ago on a different nonprofit project. She was now helping coordinate materials for a major women's summit where Chloe was a featured speaker. Her note was simple: "Hey Scarlett, saw this in the speaker materials pack and thought of you. Had to include it for press, but didn't sit right. Looks familiar. Hope you're okay." Attached was a PDF presentation slide, a speaker bio for Chloe Ardith. Under a section titled Philosophy, there was a beautifully worded paragraph about building scaffolding for women to rise, not just climb. I read it once, then again. My blood went cold. It was mine. Not just the sentiment, the exact phrasing. From a birthday message draft I wrote for Chloe 4 years ago, full of hopes for her future, a message I'd ultimately decided not to send, saving it instead in my drafts folder. Somehow, it had made its way from my unsent draft into her public branding as her own profound insight. My quote. My rhythm. Her signature at the bottom. I opened both files side by side on my screen. Her PDF on the left, my unsent draft on the right. Line for line. Bullet point for bullet point. Even the awkward line breaks were the same. They hadn't just taken my work. They had taken my voice, my deepest hopes, and weaponized them, presenting them to the world as hers. I didn't rage. I didn't curse. I felt a profound, chilling clarity. There was no mistake. No misunderstanding. This was intentional. Systematic. Total. I closed the files. I didn't call Chloe. I didn't reply to the lawyers. Instead, I pulled up the latest Catalyst Women promotional slide deck, took a screenshot, then pulled up my original deck from early 2020. I started building something I should have built years ago, a damning comparison document. Column A, their material, with dates from her site/docs. Column B, my original, with my file creation/modification dates and timestamps. I added the stolen quote comparison. I titled the file simply, The Unedited Record. I saved it into the Receipts, not regret folder. Then I opened my journal. I didn't write much. Just 3 lines. They think I'm fighting for credit. They're wrong. I'm fighting to stop being edited. The next morning, I skipped the terrible motel coffee and headed straight for the downtown library. The air was cool, holding on to the last edges of early spring. The sidewalk felt quiet, purposeful. I parked in the rear lot, locked my car, and slung my bag over my shoulder. I had somewhere important to be. Not for anyone else's sake this time. For my own. Inside the hushed, cool space of the library, I requested a private study cubicle with tech access. The librarian didn't ask questions, just handed me a small plastic key with a number tag. Room 5C. Just enough space for a chair, a table, and the truth. I sat down and plugged in a flash drive I hadn't touched in 3 years. The label on it read, Foundations V1. A name I chose back when I still thought building something solid and true for others would somehow protect me. As the files opened, a calm settled over me that surprised me. No shaking hands, no racing heart. Just focus. I scrolled through folders, beta design, pilot framework, voices not yet heard. Each held timestamps, notes, early recordings, documents that blinked back at me like long-lost witnesses to the creation story they had tried to bury. And then I found it. A folder labeled Zoom Sessions. Dated April 6, 2020. I clicked it open. A video file. It launched with a grainy freeze frame of my face mid-sentence, one hand raised in explanation, my eyes half-lit by the desk lamp in my old apartment. I hit play. Okay, my voice said, crisp and measured from years ago. Let's walk through the assessment phase here. The idea isn't to label the women. It's about identifying where they are emotionally, strategically, not just professionally. You can't coach someone into confidence if you don't understand what's undermining it at a fundamental level. There were 5 other faces on the call, in small boxes around my screen. One of them was Chloe. Younger, less polished, nodding along, taking notes in a physical notebook. She didn't speak once in that segment. I watched another minute, then another. It was all there. My diagnostic rubric. My unique framework. The way I outlined the session flows. Even the rationale behind the name Catalyst Women. I paused the video on a frame where my face was clear, gesturing emphatically. Took a screenshot. Then I pulled up one of Chloe's most recent promotional videos on Instagram. Played it side by side with a clip from my old Zoom recording. Her voice now echoed mine from 3 years ago. The cadence. The phrasing. The core idea presented as her own brilliant insight. I closed the video. The calm remained, hard and cold like tempered steel. This wasn't just proof. This was the smoking gun. Irrefutable. Undeniable. I added the video clip and the screenshot to my receipts not regret folder. My case was complete. I looked back at my phone. The screen was off, but I knew the missed call count was still climbing. The voicemails were still waiting. The insulting settlement offer was still in my bag. They were still trying to control the narrative, control me, control the fire they had lit. But the control was shifting. I opened my email, found the draft I'd sent to Margot Ellis. I opened it. Read through the subject line again. IP claim initiation, Catalyst Women. Timeline initiated. Everything was attached. Everything was documented. Everything was ready. I didn't hesitate. Didn't second guess. I hit send. Leaned back in the library chair. The quiet hum of the building surrounded me. The silence from my family was still there. A vast, empty space where a family should have been. But it didn't hold power over me anymore. It wasn't the silence of being erased. It was the silence before the storm. My story had been edited, cropped, and deleted for years. But the unedited version existed. And I was about to make sure everyone saw it. The silence was over. But the talking wasn't going to be mine. Not yet. My evidence would speak for itself.